Hello everybody, it is Night, it is Brony time, and welcome back to Let's Play the Hayseed Knight. When we last left off, we finished Chapter 1. We went through whatever new lore we had unlocked through the end of that chapter. And now we're going to be heading on into Chapter 2.
Hey! If it ain't my lil boss! How you doing, ain't I? Having a mighty fine day?
Aina looked at what little sky could be seen among the rooftops. The sun wasn't even out yet.
I know what you're thinking. Why is this fine buck loitering around the temple so early? Well, none of that. You had me so worried, so worried, that I just had to come down and check up on you. And sure enough, here you are. And here I am. First again. Yep, I'm just killing it tonight.
First in the contest of people acting suspiciously, that's for sure, but of course, Aina couldn't say a word about it. She signaled Adder to follow her into the fort since he was already there. The workday would have to start early.
Rivet here, rivet there, and this weird one's going to my rivet collection.
Work at the forge went something like this. Aina worked on a craft, and then she gave Adder whatever menial task would make him feel useful.
What's that, boss? You need me on the bellows? Sure thing. Let me just finish pounding over here, and I'll come in a sec.
She didn't have any proper accreditation that named her a smith, so he wasn't technically her apprentice either, but that didn't really matter to either of them. No, that didn't matter at all.
You sure that fire ain't hot enough yet?
All that mattered was the faint floral itch on Ina's nose, something only she could have picked up beneath the stench of ash and smoke, permanently attached to Adder's fur.
Boss, you can stop shoveling coal now. I ain't gonna take any more of my clothes off.
It wasn't just the way he smelled or the way he carried himself. There was something different in Adder that day. Something had changed. She could feel it.
Hey, boss. If you're all done staring at me, I'm gonna get back to work. Those shields won't rivet themselves.
Oops. After hours upon hours of hard work, I guess it was time for a break. Lunchtime, the most tranquil time of the day for both Adder and Aina. Not that either were ever under any real stress, mind you, but the predictability of lunchtime itself helped ease Ina's turbulent temperament and Adder's talkative stomach.
What have we got in store today, boss? Is it tater time? Is it tater time yet?
Adder had long since stubbed this short period away from the forge as potato time, since that was always the menu at Hayseed. Today was double potato time, since she'd forgotten to get him some food the day before.
Look at them taters! They're so tiny and cute! Oh boy, they look so freshly dug out, one of them still got dirt on it! Not a problem, boss. They're just... ugh.
Well, that didn't sound like an Adder sound. Oh, he's been getting some nice food from Djao, I bet. And now potatoes don't taste so good anymore.
Did these things always taste like this?
Yes, Adder. Yes, they did. Adder tried his very best not to look absolutely disgusted as he turned the 20 or so tiny raw potatoes into puree with his pestle-like teeth.
Ah, what a wonderful scene! My favorite furry potato and temple turnip sharing a meal after their heartfelt reunion.
Hildegard's enormous face appeared next to the window. Adder, for once, didn't scream in panic.
You don't look so good, Adder. Don't tell me you stayed up all night looking for your sweetheart.
Good old Grab. Sleep is for bucks that ain't got
Grab, okay.
There's no need to be so dramatic, lover boy. Aina's a grown-up. She knows when she wants some space. And it's your duty as an upstanding citizen to respect the wishes of a lady. Or else.
Your bribe is ready, you upstanding lubberwort!
Fine! It's a fine! not a bribe.
Wow, Adder cast his gaze down as Illigrab walked away, leaving him alone before Ina's judgment. Or he would have been judged if Ina hadn't turned 20 shades of red and become incapable of rational thought after Adder failed to deny that she was his sweetheart.
Hey, boss, I gotta get early today. I need to get back my, Goff's hat from the tavern. You know what they say, the hat makes the stag, and he ain't no one without it.
Huh?
Oh, hey. Got a little bit of a and from Ina.
Why can't he go get it like a grown-up? Well, that's cause he broke his leg. Gosh, no, it ain't broke, no ma'am. That dumbass just went and twisted his hoof the wrong way. Yep. Okay, bye, see you tomorrow.
Adder ran away, muttering something that sounded very much like prayers to himself. One strange day wasn't anything to be afraid of. Ina's apprentice had plenty of strange days in 1 year.
These are some lovely taters, boss. Perfect potatoes. But I couldn't fit one more bite in my tummy if I tried. No, ma'am. I'm just gonna take these home and stuff my face in front of Goff later. I ain't sharing a single one with him. Nope. No way I'm giving all them taters to him or anything. Yep.
Ina was more than happy to collaborate in any plan that involved making life harder for the contestant to worst Bard and Earlum, but the strange days passed, and they kept passing.
And that's when I told the king, bite me. You should have seen my father's face. His leaves dried right up. I spent a whole moon literally grounded.
I love the Illigrab's voice actor.
What do you mean you don't remember who broke into the warehouse?
I don't know, Master. It's like the memory had vanished from my mind.
I'm gonna vanish you from existence!
Both deer began clashing horns while Adder and Illigrab stared at the scene.
Can you believe that?
I know! Can't deer go 10 minutes without starting a fight? No offense, kiddo.
No, I mean, can you believe he forgot someone that important just like that? Can people really forget?
Oh, here we go!
Sorry, Adder, I don't have time to get into philosophical debates. Those two have just earned themselves a free ride to the dungeon.
The stroll took an unexpected direction towards the city guard's main tower in the northeastern quarter of the inner walls. It was the second highest tower in the city, with ceilings tall enough that Illigrab could walk inside. Adder had to go fetch Gyoff from there every so often, so he was relatively welcome, as long as he had Illigrab by his side.
Take it to court next time. Street fights are strictly prohibited. Are we clear?
Both of the prisoners uttered a disheartened, "Yes, sir," and Illigrab nodded to himself.
Hey, Illigrab, I was wondering, you could throw anyone in the dungeon, right?
Well, I wouldn't say anyone, but I do have a pretty good grasp on Heirloom's populace, if I may say so myself. Hey, I could even set you up in a pretty cell, if you ever want to leave Goff's place.
I'm all good. I was just wondering if you'd seen never mind.
What?
Never mind? What's that, some kind of flower?
The prettiest in the kingdom.
Oh, okay. So there's Ina. That didn't end there either. Strange days turned to strange weeks. Clink, clink, clink with the hammer in Ina's forge. But there was another incessant noise. It sounded like the bellows that lit up the furnace. Its source was, of course, Adder looking out the window, sighing like he wanted to empty his lungs. With a semi-nocturnal roommate, and what may count among the 10 worst beds in the world, dozing off, spacing out, or generally getting distracted in his job was nothing out of the ordinary for Adder. Sighing, however, that was definitely out of the norm, and he'd been doing that an awful lot lately. Stranger yet, Adder had noticed that Ina had been standing right behind him for quite a while now.
What? Huh? Hey, boss. I was just thinking about my things. You know, rivets and stuff. No worries, ma'am. I got this. I'm all focused now.
Thunk, thunk, thunk went Adder's hammer, and yet Ina wouldn't leave his side.
Else?
Ina put a hand over Adder's in what may have been the most confusing gesture this side of Lake Djao. Adder looked down at it rather blankly, only to find that he was holding the hammer by its head.
Wow-wee, that's dumb even for me. You seen my brain lately, boss? I don't know where I left it.
You left it in your pants.
Sorry, boss.
Clink, clink, clink with the hammers, and it wasn't reassuring at all. Because strange weeks had turned into strange moods.
Huh? Sorry, boss. I'm not hungry today either.
In the great realm of Archazor, where the very essence of reality was distorted to make flowers carry messages over the whole continent, and a single king had ruled since the gods fought wars in the skies. After having lost his appetite for the better part of Dawn Swoon, didn't sound plausible at all.
All right. It ain't like I'm not hungry, Kay. It's just that... Look, boss, I don't mean no offense, but you ever tried one of these? I've eaten knuckles with more flavor in them.
Dang!
Nah, what am I saying? I know you wouldn't touch these with a stick. Your paw's sitting on a pile of Barhan gold. Who the hell wants taters when you can have figs and dates for supper every night? Am I right?
Adder, I don't think... whatever. The merchant was filthy, filthy rich, and he would have indulged in such delicacies if he hadn't been too tired of his worldly life to bother chewing, and too cheap to buy actual food to fill the pantry. So Adder's meager allowance came from Ina's own, totally legit, unspecified source of income, which neither Illigrab nor Adder had probably ever thought about. But why this? Why now? When had Adder gotten so picky? He never had any problem eating the same stuff over and over before. He was thankful that he got to eat it all.
I guess it's time I learned my place and stopped drooling over all the fancy stuff I won't have again.
Where did he even get to try it in the first place? Restless, concerned, gods forbid, worried. These were all adjectives that clearly did not apply to Ina. But for some reason, she kept passing a tiny, ugly potato from hand to hand as she stared at the city from her home, thinking about the small fortune it had cost someone, not her, but someone. You'd think that deer would have settled their capital in a beautiful prairie where they could graze free and indulge in hedonism, that the whole world looked something like the village. Adder wouldn't shut up about, but no. A massive lack of foresight coupled with a king's stubbornness and the insistence of their king led to heirloom growing in the middle of a steppe, between the enormous Lake Djao and Hayseed. With barely any space for bush pens in the proximities and fertile fields and million souls to feed, food was neither cheap nor readily available in the capital, hogged by those that needed it the least. Anyway, point is that Adder was a poor starving deer, and I wasn't willing to put up with this anymore. Interesting, I think that's the first we've seen of anything that wasn't the city. Get him better food or find a cure? Adder had been working incredibly hard all year long. Maybe all he needed was some sort of encouragement. And what better encouragement than, well, the one he'd asked for. But finding food in the city was absolutely out of the question. The moment it arrived, it was counted and measured, and Ina had calculated precisely how many potatoes she could acquire from each merchant, before Illigrab began glaring at her. She'd have to make a little trip. Ina mentally went over the list of her favorite weapons as she trudged through the narrow alleys that composed the inner slums. She wasn't afraid she'd have to use them, no. She would have loved a chance to do so. The sun had just disappeared by the time Ina passed the gate of Corbaswi, the northernmost entrance to Irlium, and soon she left the walls behind. The grays, yellows, and whites of the city and the browns of the outer slums turned to deep red, only interrupted by the occasional shrubs sleeping in burrows and crevices. Even the moon that watched over Ina shone a washed-out orange that always threatened to burn the night sky. She didn't need any stars to light up her path tonight. Darkness was far better suited to her intentions. A cacophonous choir of laughs pulled Aina out of her thoughts. She jumped behind a rock, examining the distance as she searched for its source. A small congregation of merchants sitting on straw mats by a bonfire. Their fur went from light brown to pitch black, and their bodies were thin, with bigger palmed horns, fallow deer from the north. Their huge grave pines, bigger yet than the biggest trees of burden one could find in Archosaur, slept behind them, basking in firelight as they breathed puffs of fresh air and warmed their leaves. Their wares were unloaded under the bonfire: carrots, apples, pears, salt, rock honey, and not a garden in sight. There'd be no need for stealth this time, not when Aina's claws were starting to poke through her bandages. Not when her teeth gleamed with every spark that flew past her. The merchants scrambled to their feet and cowered behind their crates as they heard her approaching, sensing immediately the fate that awaited them if they dared move a muscle. Wasn't that just a perfect sight? Yes, Aina felt something distant and dangerous surrounded by the steps. Faced with a frightened multitude surrounding her, all the whales and eyes sinking into her skin. It wasn't a feeling that told her this was all she knew once, and a life she could not remember living. A scream that overwhelmed all of her senses, while her mind struggled helplessly to regain any measure of control, like she could do something about it. But perhaps she was not the one supposed to do something about it. The crowd grew unexpectedly quiet enough that Aina could hear her own thoughts again, at least, and then she saw her. Commanding and silent, with a glare as imposing as a mountain and horns so large that they would have killed whatever might have had her self-esteem, an Ibex woman far from home.
Fear, but you don't a surprise, Pasitapse.
Interesting. Last words caught Aina completely by surprise. Boscatet, or at least something that resembled the ancient script of the gods closely enough to pass for it. The woman took another step closer to Aina, finishing her stride on an awkward stance unfit for a warrior. Aina stepped forward to watch her close enough that the fire outshone the purple glow in her eyes. She let her hammer fall by her side quite dramatically, and stood proudly in front of her. The merchants nearly fell on their tails at the sight of her teeth. Even the woman gulped audibly, but she didn't back down one inch.
We are traveled from far, and we are tired. The deers frightened. They need to sleep good, so I fight with you. But we fightn't here, okay?
The illusion of authority and control she radiated faltered a little more with every word she said, and yet all the merchants around her seemed completely in awe of her intervention. Aina sneered to herself. No matter if this goat was brave enough to try facing her one-on-one, at the least she could do was honor her request.
Go.
The merchants didn't need to be told twice. They scampered away among the rocks like scared shrubs, dragging their personal belongings with them. I don't remember getting this scene. I literally do not. I think I made a different choice than I did the last time. So choices do matter. Aina was left alone with the stone-faced Ibex at last. It was her, in fact, who dared brave the distance first, getting closer and closer to the fire until she was standing right in front of Aina. Her body was tensing up with anticipation for the duel. Short as the combat would obviously be, she would have finished in a blink, destroying her adversary with a single strike. But her opponent moved in ways that she could not predict, deciding to sit down on a stone slab by her feet instead.
Are you hungry?
Aina's ears flew up. The foreign visitor of her mother tongue again. A whole phrase this time.
I'm sorry. You do understand Basaktat, yes? My Sirnar isn't very good, so I had a feeling it would be easier to talk to you like this. I heard the creatures of the West speaking it. I saw your boats docking once before back home in the middle of the night. I didn't say a word because I knew nobody would believe me, but I knew I would see you again sooner or later. I've been preparing my heart for this moment.
Aina remained immobile, but her eyes opened as she listened to these foreboding whispers. The storm was getting closer by the day, howling louder than ever. It was starting to make her queasy. A discreet motion in the corner of her eye brought Aina back to reality. She immediately switched back to her fighting stance as she caught a glimpse of the goat reaching for his spear, only to tumble forward and almost faceplant on the ground as the woman proceeded to hang a teapot over it. This was entirely too much for Ina's brain. Our poor, confused bandit pointed at the spear, and then slammed the bottom of her hammer against the ground, demanding an explanation.
That's not what I'm sorry. I don't really intend to fight you. That was all a ruse. I'm not really a mercenary, and even if I was, I'm certain you could break all my bones without even trying. Sorry for deceiving you.
Ina's ears fell flat over her face. She must have misunderstood her accent. The words had surely shifted too far from the Basaktet, I think that's how the voice actor said it, her father spoke, because the other option was that someone was actually apologizing to her for trying not to get killed.
I am actually a priestess on a pilgrimage. I'd never held a weapon in my life, but Barhans have a fame for being great warriors where I'm from. I didn't have the coin to afford a journey so far south, so I offered myself as a caravan guard to earn my keep. I was given a spear and a shield before leaving my town and told to uphold our reputation, but I've only ever known the way of the gods. All my prayers have been selfish pleas that I'd never need to use it, but I wouldn't have left my home if I didn't understand the risks I'd be facing.
As if the situation wasn't weird enough, the goat jumped to her feet and stood proudly on her little rock.
The sun shines brighter on a liar than a coward. So I was taught by the warriors of Akdem Wisarat. So I will readily accept all the clouds I encounter on the way. I would really appreciate it if you would let me have this cup of tea first, though. Sorry.
Ina was honestly too dazed to react to her request at this point. She could barely even register what she was hearing anymore. The amount of nonsense the goat was dropping by the minute was staggering. Such tripe. If the sun favored liars, Adder would be positively gleaming. As this brief thought returned Adder to her mind, Ina felt a twinge of something. Doubt? Pain? Guilt? Perhaps? She wondered if Adder would be fine with this whole situation. Would he stop her if he knew how she got a hold of all the food she brought him? Could he even afford to question where it came from as long as it filled his stomach? Now, if Adder cared about any such thing, he would not have been living with Gyoff to begin with. He never asked Ina where her dear potatoes came from either. It seemed obvious in retrospect. He must have had a hunch, at least. There's only so much that can be discounted as naivety until it becomes willful ignorance. Her moment of introspection was interrupted by the rattle of the spear scratching the trampled dirt beneath them. 3 symbols abstracted beyond what was recognizable to Ina anymore. An empty rectangle with a bottom missing. A house, 3 straight lines. Ina turned absentmindedly back to the fire once more, seeking the comfort of the flames she could actually understand. Instead, she couldn't help but feel slightly embarrassed upon realizing that she'd been out of it enough for the water to boil. Ignorant of Ina's silent turmoil, the strangely apologetic goat picked up her teapot and poured its contents in a worn-down clay cup. Then she produced a small salt rock from a pocket and added it to the brew. A warm cup of tea probably wasn't all that comforting under Ina's impatient gaze.
It says, welcomed in the temple of Hiru, tu apne ter Djao. My name, that is, the seeress called me Djao, so that I would always keep the strength of my resolve, wherever the Hatsa may take me.
Djao took a little stick to the tea and began slowly stirring her mix in a motion so patient and deliberate that made Ina suspect of how genuine it truly was.
A priestess, and a priestess I will die if you put an end to my life. But I'm a very good listener. Perhaps I could share a little of my strength if you would spare a little of yours.
Either the Ibex hadn't quite yet figured out that her would-be combatant couldn't speak, or she was speaking in a metaphorical sense, which was a little beyond the smith's capacity of abstraction. All Ina could tell either way is that she was on the receiving end of a sincere smile. The worst kind. Ina turned her face towards the cup she was being offered. Tea with salt. A small alliance. Take a sip. Djao's face lit up so brightly that it was almost blinding to look at.
Is it good?
The tea may as well have been flavorless boiling water with some leaves and salt in it. Djao hadn't steeped in even remotely long enough. Besides, the water was too hot, which would have killed any of the subtle sweet cues Ina's sharp nose could pick up from the watered leaves floating towards the surface. But this was not the moment nor the place to reveal our unexpectedly nuanced knowledge of tea preparation. It also wasn't a good moment to show the sun-red flush that crept up onto her cheeks as she realized that she had drunk from the same side as her. Aina snatched the spear right out of Djao's hand and began scratching the ground as well, trying to channel her embarrassment into her handiwork. Even rushed and flustered, Aina's glyphs were carefully crafted, products of an age where there was time to take calligraphy leisurely. She drew symbols that her mind didn't remember learning, but her hands did. A half-sun covered by the horizon. Gemstones under the sand.
Sunset treasure. Or, a treasured sunset. Tessina, yes?
After a few moments of hesitation, Aina nodded guardedly. Having someone else read out loud what she wrote was always a slightly disturbing experience. It made her feel exposed. Like anyone could open up her chest and read her heart if she lowered her guard for a moment. Because they could. It could really be as simple as that, but that was not a reality Aina was prepared to face. Djao's vacant expression couldn't do anything to abate her torment. Face hidden behind the cup as she let her eyes rest on the symbols Aina had drawn.
You have wandered so far into the steppes, all alone in the middle of the night, to attack a band of merchants that simply carry supplies to a starving city. Us mortals do this all the time. Hunger makes us desperate. Cold makes us lonely. I thought you were here to eat us, but you don't ever starve or feel warmth, do you? You were born to take these things from others, not to share them. Yet I'm sorry, I think you can tell this is wrong, deep down. The sun shines upon you too, even if it's just barely, but you are scared of it.
Enough. Aina sprung to her feet, baring her fangs threateningly. She let this goat mess with her mind for a while because she was curious, but that was it. She'd show her scared. As her teeth loomed over Djao's face, frozen in fear, as her irate glare reflected the purple glow of her eyes on Djao's own, she found herself paralyzed as well. Aina tumbled back, overwhelmed by something she couldn't quite name, for she had spent a lifetime refusing its existence. She swept away the only proof of her presence with a kick, sending the dust flying over the fire in the teapot. In the darkness, she picked up her hammer and made leave. It took Djao a moment longer to thaw out of her shock, but she still had the courage to call out last time.
Your fate may not be a sunset after all, but a sunrise. Keep looking for the sun, wherever it finds you.
Interesting. So Aina's developed feelings for her, I guess? Interesting. The sun? What a joke. The empty steps watched Aina drag her feet back home, her mind stuck on the moment when she tried to attack Djao. Once again and again, it's a memory, a loop she could not make sense of. Why did she stop there and then, when so many others before had begged for their wares and their lives before without receiving an ounce of sympathy for their efforts? Revelation struck Aina as a city. Walls obscured the moon shining over her dagger. The stammering, the scared eyes, the hopeless smiles. She was just like... It's interesting. What was she about to say there? I don't know. But, alas, we are out of time, and this is where we are going to have to stop for today. Yeah, interesting. So we met a new character, Djao. And we learned a little bit more about Aina. She has a past. I mean, it was mentioned that she's probably a golem. Like Yoff. And to see more and more is like the case. Now, the interaction between Djao, I could have misread it, but it seems like it was tied in with two different things. Her insecurity of whatever. She said she was just like somebody. We don't know. It cut off. But I think she may have been attracted to Djao. I don't know, but we will see. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to Brony Time for more content, especially more of the Hayseed Night. Also, make sure to share this series far and wide so we can get more eyes on it, and hopefully bring in new people. I will see you all next time. Excuse me.